back in. Today we're going to discussing our Week 5 must-start defenses and kickers of the week. Let's go ahead and get to it. Now, first thing I just want to say really quickly, we do have the Falcons, Bears, Packers, and Steelers on bye this week, but let's get into some of these top defenses of the week. And we're going to start with the Vikings. The Vikings defense is currently one of 3 defenses averaging more than 10 fantasy points per game. They are currently tied for the 7th most sacks and have actually created a turnover on 15% of offensive drives they face, which is also top 7 in the league. The Vikings have already racked up 35 pressures as well, and now get to face a Browns offense that have yielded 2 or more sacks in every game this season. To go over to the Detroit Lions, who get one of the best matchups of the slate against really a truly putrid Bengals offense. The Bengals have fallen off a cliff offensively since losing Joe Burrow. Jake Browning has been sacked 6 times and hasn't thrown for more than 140 yards in a game. They've also scored just 1 touchdown over his last 8 quarters. The Lions have had no problem getting to the quarterback as they have racked up 14 sacks already and look to keep the good times rolling against a really horrible Bengals offense right now. Now let's move over to some of our streaming options of the week. And first is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are currently the number 4 scoring DST in fantasy football right now. They only roster in 27% of leagues. The Cardinals have the 11th most sacks, and they have the 10th most turnovers through 4 weeks. And next up is a very strong matchup against the Titans, who have yielded a pressure on 38% of dropbacks, and they have also allowed 5 sacks per game and are also allowing 12.3 fantasy points per game, which is the second highest rate in the league right now. So the Cardinals are my top streaming option of the week. Next up is going to be Indianapolis Colts. The Colts defense has been better than most would have thought. The Colts are scoring 9.7 fantasy points per game, which is the 4th highest rate in the league, and they have done a very good job as they have turned over opposing offenses on 20% of offensive drives, which is the 3rd highest rate. The Raiders currently rank 11th in turnover rate through 4 weeks, and if that really doesn't excite you, they are also allowing 4 sacks per game as well. So I just think the Colts are in a really good spot this week to bounce back a little bit over their loss against the Rams. The Indianapolis Colts, I think, are in a very good spot as well. Next up is going to be the Cleveland Browns, only rostered in 8% of leagues. The Browns have one of the top defenses, even if it doesn't reflect in their fantasy production. The Browns are currently at DST 23 in fantasy points per game. However, they have sacked the quarterback 11 times, which is also tied for 7th highest. Now they get a matchup against a very beat-up Vikings offensive line and Carson Wentz. Wentz has already been sacked 9 times in the 2 games and has already turned the ball over twice since taking over as quarterback. And I think the Browns are set up to be a top 12 defense this week. So another widely available defense. And I think a little bonus one, I also think the Rams are a really good spot this week as well. They're rostered a little bit closer to 50% of leagues. I didn't really add them to this. But with the 49ers and all their offensive injuries right now and how good this Rams has looked, I think the Rams is also another one, if they're sitting out there, that I would have probably above the Browns as another streaming option. So let's move over to the kicker position. And I really just want to hit on a couple news and notes items. A couple things that I found sort of interesting as far as kickers are concerned. If you could ever find anything interesting about kickers, of the top 12 kickers, only 5 of them are rostered more than 60% of leagues, which is Brandon Aubrey, Chase McLaughlin, Harrison Bucker, Tyler Loop, and Jake Bates. All the rest of them are rostered in less than 60% of leagues right now. And I just think that should change. I mean, there's a lot of these guys here that are rostered in less than 10% of leagues, and which are top 12 scoring kickers, which is crazy because, like, when you think about it, like, there's no world would a tight end that is, the number 3 overall scoring tight end just be sitting out there in fantasy leagues. Obviously, things are a little bit different, but I'll also point out to you that there are a lot of kickers that are scoring quite a bit of fantasy points right now. Really, right now when it comes to defenses to kickers, only 3 defenses are averaging more than 9 fantasy points per game, while there are 17 kickers currently averaging more than 9 fantasy points per game. So I want to throw those 2 things out there. I think we should be leaning a little bit more into kickers, whereas defenses are way more volatile on a week-to-week basis. So now lastly, I just want to hit on really quickly, Tyler Bass is actually eligible to return this week from IR. Now, Sean McDermott did come out and stated that he's not ready to make any decision yet on this situation. But as of now, Matt Prater is looking like the starting kicker for week 5. I don't think they move off of Tyler Bass, who has been a longtime kicker for them, but it's certainly something we should be monitoring. Now let's move over to our streaming options of the week. And we're going to start with one of my sleepers from heading into the season. It's Matt Gay, still only rostered in 17% of leagues. Now I get it. He struggled to start the season, but he has course corrected since then. And now he has been a top 6 scorer in each of his last 2 games. And he is now the kicker 7 overall in the season. He's already attempted 10 field goals, and all of them have been from either 40 or 50 plus yards. We already knew heading into the season that Matt Gay would likely be a top 10 kicker this season, as Dan Quinn has finished top 5 in field goal attempts every season he's been a head coach. And now next up, you get a matchup against the Chargers, who have yielded the 11th most fantasy points to kickers this season. Gay is not just a streaming option. He's a must add until his week 12 bye for me. And the same goes for the next guy I'm about to talk about, and that's Spencer Shrader, only rostered in 40% of leagues. Shrader continues to be the best kicker in fantasy football. He scored double-digit points in every single week of the season. He's connected on 92% of his field goals and leads the league in attempts. I can't seem to figure out why kickers like Evan McPherson are still rostered over 60% of leagues, despite being the kicker 33 in fantasy points per game. While Spencer Shrader continues to produce 13.2 fantasy points per game. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But next up is a matchup at home against the Raiders, who allow the third most fantasy points to kickers. Spencer Shrader should be rostered in like 90% of leagues right now. Let's change that. Let's keep it moving here. Let's move over to Chad Ryland, rostered 9% of leagues. He's currently the kicker 12, averaging just under same fantasy points per game through the first 4 weeks. He's converted 80% of his field goals and has shown the ability to hit some longer ones, as he's already connected on a 57-yarder. He's already made 4 field goals of 40 and 50-plus yards. The Cardinals take on the Titans this week. Cardinals are currently 9.5-point favorites, and the Titans have allowed the 12th most fantasy points to kickers. Lastly, just want to hit on Jason Myers real quick. He was on this video last week, and he finishes the kicker 4 last week, scoring 14 fantasy points, and he has now scored 14 and 17 fantasy points over his last 2 weeks. And on the season, he's the kicker 3, averaging 12 fantasy points per game. Myers should be rostered in far more than 6% of the leagues he's currently rostered in, and the Seahawks also have the 9th highest applied team total this week. So let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions. I'm sure to get to them, and we'll be back again on Wednesday night to answer all of your start sit questions live like we always do. I'll see you then. We'll see you on the next one.